Hey everybody, I'm Amy.
I'm Paul.
And this is the Comics Haul. We've got a fun little show for you guys this week, catching up on some new number ones you might have missed. But we've also got Cassidy moderating in the chats. Say hi, Cassidy.
Hello, everyone. Just to let you know, we are live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group, and I am watching in all of those chats. Just let us know if you have any questions.
She is everywhere. Yes, so shout out to Cassidy during the show. If you have questions, she'll be bringing that kind of stuff to our attention. So make sure you guys hop in your preferred chat and have a fun time. But without further ado, we've got some cool and some crazy comic book news for you guys this week.
Yes, we do.
Starting with a little bit of a technical snafu on the part of the Eisner Awards. The Eisner's voting closed early in June. You guys might recall we did an episode dedicated to Eisner's nominees. There was an error with the website that hosts the voting, and in an abundance of caution, Comic-Con decided to create a new secure website and dismiss all of the original votes, asking professionals to re-vote, and the votes closed yesterday. However, there's been some discrepancy because not all the comic book creators who voted the first time got the notification in time to vote the second time. So people are really kind of confused as to what's going on with the Eisners right now.
Yikes.
A couple of people, I know. If you ask me, they should just let us fill in the ballots and then we'll be good. But some comic book creators are calling for a postponement of the event, a cancellation of the 2020 Eisners. I think it would be a total shame to have them completely cancel because so many cool nominees were recognized this year. But let's hope that Comic-Con can figure out what to do with the awards this year because there was some compromise to the voting.
Fingers crossed there. So last Friday, DC Comics announced a surprise anthology launch of Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Red from a number of superstar creators. The series will be a digital first and features the talents of Stefan Sajic, who I'm always terrified to pronounce the name of. Stefan Sajic, Paul Dini,
artist behind Harleen.
Behind Harleen, yes. So Stefan Sajic, Paul Dini, Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Connor, Erica Henderson, and so many more. Also, really interesting and exciting is artists Mirka Andolfo and Joe Quinones will be making their DC Comics writing debuts during that anthology. And it actually seems really cool. I'm really excited for it because each story, as the title suggests, will be done in 3 colors, black, white, and red. This was created as a sort of riff on the classic Batman black and white series. If that sounds familiar, we've got Sideshow has some statues that have kind of played off that, and it's an entire different series there. But it's also utilizing Harley's unique charm that she has, especially adding that red in is important. The series is going to run about 14 chapters, each released weekly on Fridays. The series can be read at readdc.com, Comixology, and other digital comics platforms, of course.
And speaking of comics releases, Lucasfilm Press has announced a new publishing initiative for The Mandalorian that will extend not only to novels, which are full of words and no pictures that we don't want to talk about right now, but no, books are great. But they will be, of course, hitting Marvel's and IDW's Star Wars comic book lines. Now, there's no real announcement about what the stories are going to be about or who's going to be tackling them. But traditionally, IDW's series tend to be the like Clone Wars, the more lighthearted. I mean, not that Clone Wars is lighthearted, but they tend to skew towards the animated audience. Sometimes younger stories, as they do with their Marvel titles. But Marvel seems to be the more cinematic. Everything that happens in the Marvel comics is technically considered canon, so this might be Lucasfilm's time to really expand the world of the Mando outside of what we get to see on the screen, because fans are so excited about the child, the Mando. There might even be, like, I would love to see stories about Cara Dune, Moff Gideon. So this will be their chance to really expand that universe, and we will probably be getting more information about this as we get closer to the release of season 2 this fall, because filming did wrap on the Mando. But that's really exciting, and you can look forward to more announcements from Marvel and IDW as to what Mandalorian comic series they will be releasing very soon.
Yes, and speaking of things happening very soon, before we get into our comics, happy Wednesday, because this Wednesday, we can actually talk about Sideshow Con, which we are super happy about. Sideshow Con was announced on Monday during a live stream, and then we have all sorts of things that are going to be happening there. I mean, we have Cassidy, who's our Oracle. She can go ahead. She's our Barbara Gordon in the chair, and our Oracle, who can go ahead and drop links for that, so you guys can actually follow, read the blog, and see everything that's going on there. We actually had a swag bundle that was, going that you could, when you pre-registered for Sideshow Con 2020, there was a swag bundle that you actually could get. That first swag bundle is completely sold out. But don't fear, everyone. We do have a swag bundle 2.0 coming soon. We can't exactly tell you guys exactly what's in it, but it is coming soon.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting. And that's also a warning to everybody who's wondering what Sideshow Con could be like. You need to be on top of those things. Those things will be going fast. We're so excited and can't wait for more information to be announced. I'm sure we're going to be doing a Comics Hall Comics Hall Comic Con special. So that'll be pretty fun for you guys to look forward to. So without further ado, let's kind of explain how we picked. I mean, for those who were present for our Doom Patrol show last week, you saw the idea strike us as we were talking. But this week we wanted to kind of cover. Yeah, that's you got to watch the magic happen live. This week we wanted to cover a number of number one issues that you may have missed because of the way that comics scheduling has changed, the publishing releases, the comic book store closures. But these are the start of some new series, both limited and ongoing, that are very exciting, not to be missed. Some of them are already going back to second printing. So we picked 3 issues total. Paul and I each tackled one, and then we chose to do a pick of the week, which was our big kind of overall. You absolutely cannot miss this if you read nothing else. So we will be covering those. I will be covering the Ludocrats from Image Comics. Paul, do you want to tell them what you're
and I'm going to be covering Dark Knight's Death Metal, which is the sequel to the 2016 event, Batman Metal, that I'm sure a lot of you folks are aware of. And our pick of the week, I'll do the drum roll. Amy, you do all the heavy lifting.
Oh, okay. The pick of the week is Adventure Man #1 from Image Comics, with the all-star team of Matt Fraction and Terry and Rachel Dodson, as well as Clayton Cowles. That is our #1 pick, but we're gonna hold off on that a little bit because it's gonna get its proper due a little bit later in our show, because this is a triple-sized issue, which is very exciting.
It'll get
yeah, that is one of the most, like, if you are not reading that, you absolutely have to fix that. So
yes, and
jump right in.
I'm going to jump right into Death Metal. But before we do, we're going to take a break right before we get into the, to answer some questions before we get into Adventure Man. So while we're talking about this, let us know in the comments, wherever you're watching, what's a new series that you started reading that maybe we don't know about, maybe we should know about, or you're just so excited to talk about. Let us know, and we'll get to some of those after Amy's done talking about Ludocrats in a bit.
Yes.
All right. Is this my time? Do I get to talk about Death Metal?
Do you want to explain what's going on behind you right now?
Yes. So behind me, as you folks can see, is the newly shaped Metalverse. This is... Boy, there's a lot here. So I promised Amy I'm going to do my best. Oh, thank you so much. So this is actually what's behind me. This is the Metalverse there. Now, what you're seeing is a completely reshaped DC landscape because of a ton of comic booky events that have happened. But basically, there are 4 new continents that you're seeing. Castle Bat in the center there, the Hellscape, the Arkham Wastelands, and Megapocalypse. That's right over my Megapocalypse is the technological looking one. But for some of you folks who may not be aware of what this is the creative team of Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion, and FCO Plasencia. This is the team behind the original Metal series. So, and they also, if you are more familiar with maybe the Black Label book that they did, Batman Last Night on Earth, but Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo also started working on Batman together back in 2011. So if you've been reading comics since 2011, I'm fairly sure that you've heard at least of Scott Snyder and Capullo, but Jonathan Glapion and FCO Placencia are some of the people that are, you know, a little bit more behind the curtains, but have made Batman a little, you know, kind of given Batman that mood as we've seen as of late.
They've given him a mood.
Oh yeah, as if he needed any help being in a mood. But yes, this is a huge DC event that I will kind of get into later. The repercussions of this story that is happening in Death Metal are going to really play out into the future of DC. But before we get into that, the plot here, all right, everyone stick with me, is so the Earth is enveloped by the dark multiverse, and the Justice League is spread out, and they're at the mercy of the Batman who laughs. Whether or not you were reading any Batman comics, you definitely know who I'm talking about, and you know who that is. So in order to survive this incredibly transformed and hellish landscape that they're in, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman are all separated, are on their own journeys. And I mean, I love that they really are kind of steering into like the rock and roll metal of this, because like Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, very different writers. I mean, very different types of, you know, they're very creative in different ways at their own craft. Scott Snyder's a lot more soft-spoken, and he is, you know, very much so always in his head, and Greg Capullo is much more outspoken. You know, he's a big heavy he loves to lift weights, and he said like that's the one thing that he told Scott Snyder, like, we need, if we're going to be working on Batman all this time, is like, I need weights in the room. So they're just very different, but they share a love of like speed metal and death metal, and so they kind of have that, like, you know, that mantra constantly you know, around. One thing that we like to do here on the Comics Hall is we talk about aim of books, and I try to factor that in to this if you were going to go pick this up, and the A in AIM stands for accessibility. Now, I would not call this book easily accessible, but there are ways around where you can sort of still understand parts of it. I had basically said, if you really want to read everything, read you know, Batman Metal 1 through 6, No Justice, Justice League, Year of the Villain, Batman Who Laughs, and Hell Arisen. That's like 2.5 years of story. It's a lot of story. But if you really want a condensed version, and you really want to read the you know, the preface books before going into this, you can really just read Metal 1 through 6 and Justice League 38 and 39. We see there's some events that happen in Justice League 38 and 39 that really kind of set the stage for what Metal is. I mean, there's a cosmic battle between the Justice League and a new villain named Perpetua, and there's, I'm sure if you've been aware of it, there's some Dr. Manhattan in there. You're wondering what that's about. Read 38 and 39. I mean, this is an incredible book. I absolutely love it, and I really would love for everyone to please go read it so that I can stop bothering just Amy with this book and be like, dude, did you read it? Did you read it?
Well, and the problem is I've been familiar with, I love the designs of all the like dark Batman mashup with the other.
Right.
See, and I don't know the words because I am not a DC event reader, and so I have not been reading the series, but I was so enchanted by the design of it's Superman with Darkseid's arm, right? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was so enchanted with the designs of these characters that I was like, Paul, like, how accessible is it for someone like me who's just literally walking in blind? And I don't often have that experience with comics. Unfortunately, it's I would have to do a little bit of back reading, but DC and some news sites have some kind of like catch up reading for you, or the here's what you missed on Glee of death metal.
Exactly.
But I mean, the designs are so cool, and so like I want to read it.
There are so many awesome, like, just the variance of this book alone, and we'll get into the interior of the book in a quick second, because we you know, we're trying to spend not as much time on just these books because there is a lot, so I don't want to just overwhelm everyone here. But if we can maybe show some of the interior of the book and just maybe flip through those real fast, I think, you know, you guys can really see there, like, you know, there you've got Wonder Woman with the chainsaw. Like when I put this photo in our notes, I was like, this is called the chainsaw of truth. That's what this is, and it completely is explained in the story. But I mean, everything is just so expressive and sharp, and it's done in a way that Greg Capullo and honestly Jonathan Glapion are known for, in a way that like the dark colors are really brooding, is the way they explain it. Like another person that this whole event takes place of, like they wanted the colors, even the environment, to be brooding and be ominous and looming over you the entire time you're reading this. And then Cassidy, if you don't mind, it was actually funny, DC Comics did this because of our show. They needed us to plug, this small upstart called DC Comics. But the map behind me, this is the new wasteland, if you will. There is actually now a interactive map, and you can just drag your cursor over each of these, areas, and you can see exactly what they are, what their name is, who runs that area. Cassidy, if you don't mind, if you can just drop that link in there for someone, you guys can follow it. On that link, it's actually cool. There's a music video that was done, by, some of the images were also done by Greg Capullo. Marilyn Manson provided an original song for this as a trailer. Like me and Amy were talking about, we don't think that there are enough trailers for comic books anymore.
I think, not even just anymore. I think it's a trend that I know it's an extra expenditure of resources, but I think there have been some incredibly effective multimedia advertisements for comic books. Like, why do movies only get trailers when you've got such a visual medium as comics? Right. I know when Marvel did War of the Realms, they came out with an original heavy metal Asgardian theme song. And there have been books that have launched trailers. Like when we talked about Mercy a few months ago, there was a live action trailer that Mirka Andolfo had put together of someone dressed as her protagonist, and The Wicked and the Divine had a trailer. And so there's certain books that lend themselves really well to having, like original songs, trailers, extra sensory experiences that really let you engage with the story in a whole different way.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the things is people think that comic books go from the medium of pen and paper to possibly, maybe the big screen or TV. But like, it's so awesome to see a obscure third media outlet being like a music video. I listen to comics and I listen to like rain sounds, so I can just be like dialed in. But like to read this and just hear like a new Marilyn Manson song, like it just adds to the experience of reading this book.
Now, sorry, permit me to interrupt. As you're talking about the music and the experience, which character in Dark Knight's number one or Dark Knight's Death Metal, I'm sorry, which one do you think best embodies that concept of death metal, whether musically or?
Honestly, I think we get one curse word a show. I have to say, the most badass character in this entire comic is Wonder Woman. She was definitely by no means left out of any of the prerequisite reading material. But she is now the warden of the underworld, and she is the sole warden of the underworld. And she just has so many awesome moments in this. Like, this is a Wonder Woman story, I feel. And Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder have mentioned in interviews talking about death metal that they'd always wanted, because this was actually supposed to be a direct sequel. It was supposed to come out in 2017, but then it did so well that they spun out and did No Justice, Justice League Dark, and Odyssey. So they had a lot of other stuff to read and write, but they'd always planned for Wonder Woman to be at the forefront. And there are moments in this book where you're just like, oh my Lord, like, of course it's Wonder Woman doing this. Like, no one else could do these incredible things and like stand up to these incredibly devious and terribly scary people. And she doesn't even blink. Like,
she faces down a dinosaur. I saw a dinosaur.
Yeah. There we are. Yes.
Is that Batman's dinosaur?
That is actually Batman, who uploaded his. So you guys I'm not going to give you a full DC history lesson because this is going to be a 4-hour show. But if these are Earth 1, 2, 3, and 4, in between the gaps there, you have Earth -1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are all just bad Batman from the dark multiverse. And it's an incredibly wild ride that I think everybody should read, especially if you're a Batman fan. Just if you don't want to read all the prerequisite material, just go online and look up what do I need to know before reading. I promise you it's out there because I've sent it to Amy like 3 times. Like, hey, did you read it? Did you read it? But yes, Dark Knight's Metal by Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion, and FCO Placencia are worth the cover price of $4.99. Go buy this book, go read it, and you can read it and headbang at the same time, I've learned. So
Not many comics offer you that experience, that
no, they don't.
Body sensory experience reading. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my equally mind-bending, but in a different capacity comic that I chose for this week. I am a fan of Kieran Gillen. I've read just about everything he's done. I haven't read Peter Cannon Thunderbolt and his Uber series, but I'm a fan of his Brit wit and humor, which pairs perfectly with The Ludocrats #1. This book had a storied history trying to get published. It was originally conceived in 2003. It was announced with great fanfare at Image Expo 2015, and then it was supposed to come out on April 1st, 2020, and then it finally came out in May once Diamond began shipping again. So this book had a long road to getting there. Actually, my background currently is the original teaser of The Ludocrats from Image Expo 2015.
Oh.
And for those of you who are uninitiated, Ludocrats is a portmanteau of the ludicrous aristocrats, and that's exactly all you need to know about this book. But there's so much more to it. The first issue is called The Fine and Ludicrous Institution of Matrimony and also Murder. And this was put together by Kieran Gillen, Jim Rosenthal, with art by Jeff Stokely, colors by Comics Hall favorite Tamara Bonvillain. I think we should have an award for a creator who gets mentioned like in 3 shows in a row. Because I think Tamara Bonvillain definitely would get that award.
And Clayton Cowles is right up is on her heels. Yeah.
Yes, Clayton Cowles with the lettering. This is a certainly M-rated mature comic. And it's very interesting because at the same time, the book is so high concept and hard to explain, but the plot is fairly straightforward. It's like a comic book version of a Monty Python skit. It feels like Asterix and Obelix. It's very hard for me to say. But this is $3.99. It is a limited series of only 5 issues, so it is a shorter kind of commitment if you are interested in it. But basically, the world of the Ludocrats is full of a rich hierarchy of the ludicrous aristocrats who absolutely hate boring people. If something is worth remembering, then they'll remember it. And if it's not worth remembering, then they don't want to know about it because it'll just make them sad over how boring it is. Ludocrats are capricious and chaotic, and the book is a little bit dizzying, but it's a lot of fun. The first issue begins, as the title suggests, with a wedding of a celebrity surgeon to a boring person who has his titles stricken from him. Even from this spread page, it was the opening of the preview, but there's a little bit story and introduction in the first issue before you get to the wedding. But you can see there's drinks being served on balloons. There's an octopus upstairs. There's the adjudicator of the wedding is a gecko. And there's a really fun bonus in the back of the first issue where they break down this snapshot and give you the who's who of important guests at the wedding. And so this is the celebrity surgeon, Elena Triptych, being married to Lord Polderwort, who has been declared the incredible high crime of being boring, for which he is actually executed after he's married so that the celebrity surgeon may take his ludocracy and all the titles that belonged to his family. And the story of the wedding sets off a meet cute for Otto. The main characters are Baron Otto von Suberton, who is the giant red-bearded gentleman, and then his partner, Professor Hades, who is she's the ego to his id, which in Freudian psychology, the id is all about the hunger, the passion, the instant gratification. I want it now. And that's exactly what the ludocrats are like. And Professor Hades herself is a little bit the balancing act. She's the logical side of the plans, but the plans are not super logical. One of my favorite things is this issue. They explain terminology that they expect you to understand. Like everybody's awaiting the arrival of the Eldritch Hyperpope. And you're like, all right, what's an Eldritch Hyperpope? And they never really explain it to you. It's just everybody in this world knows what a Hyperpope is. And one of the most incredibly high concept characters that is introduced is Gratinia Gavelstein. She is the steam judge of New Prussia and the discoverer of 4 new species of orgasms in the rainforest. And they just say things like this in this comic. It's absolutely absurd. She is my favorite thing. I think is part of a visual joke to this. The train of her dress is a literal train, so she's got about 4 train cars attached to the back of her. She is loud and rude, and Otto, who is our main character, he wants her for a wife because no other ludocrat can stand up to him as his wanton animal desires, and she is a strong woman, so he's like, I want that for a wife. I love that in the background of this panel too, you can just see a hot dog. There's a small yellow chicken as well that persists throughout the panels, and it's just, the book is filled with so many delightful details by Jeff Stokely that you don't really understand, but it's all a part of that world. I mean, this gentleman who is introducing Gratinia is covered in snakes, and you don't know if he's got any other clothes but the snakes. This book is non sequiturs all the way down, but it's kind of quintessentially Kieran Gillen. This is if you follow him on Twitter, you know he's infamous for making very bad puns. This is bad puns that are so fun they're good. This is nonsense language, but a fairly straightforward plot. There's a wedding and a kidnapping, and the worst crime in the world of a ludocrat is being boring, and so the worst. This book tries to avoid the crime of being boring, and here's our Baron Otto von Suberton actually beheading the boring groom because he says boring people never change, and you can see that kind of frenetic energy, the fact that the sound effects are written into the action and the overdrawn expressions. It's just it's a delightful book full of cartoon physics. And there's things in this book that shouldn't happen in the grounds of any normal comic book situation. I mean, even with our superheroes, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I will accept this much comic book physics. But the Ludocrats it's a non sequitur journey for people who want something that is sillier. You do have to pay attention while you're reading it because it can lose you very easily. But I think it's delightful. And then I do also like the inclusion of Dr. Exposition, who is deemed a boring person, but he only exists to explain things to the readers in the world of Ludocrats. And so this is a limited series. It's very strange to recommend. And I personally, I likened it to eating psychedelic candy for the eyes and the mind. It's enjoyable. It feels a little bad for you, but it's a break from the norm. And not everybody's going to love it, but if you love it, then it's exactly your kind of treat. And every issue has a subtitle that kind of explains what you're getting into. And I won't spoil the second issue, but the second issue is out. And I believe it has both issues have gone into multiple printings at this point, just because of how much they resonate with fans of Kieran Gillen, how much they resonate with fans of the absurd. And this is a truly bizarre comic that is unlike any other that we've recommended on this show. Even it's not even close to Doom Patrol, because Doom Patrol operates in the world of superheroes while being so strange. This is absolute non sequiturs all the way down, and I love it. It's fantastic.
It's nonsense for nonsense sake, where at least it's like Doom Patrol, like you're trying to build to something. But before we go on and answer some questions, I know that at one point Kieran Gillen actually, he it's that if he's in a rush, he likes to explain that his comic for Image Die is like goth Jumanji. Like he only gave it 2 words. So, Amy, if you had to sum up this book in 2 words, what would those 2 words be?
I mean, I almost think the title does the work for me because it's ludicrous aristocrats, but I think the 2 words that I would give are insanity. I think it'd be joyful insanity.
Oh, wonderful.
I know that he also, like, because when he says Jumanji, you know, Jumanji, like someone gets sucked into a game where the game comes to life, and that's what Die is. It's Dungeons and Dragons come to life in a terrible way. I think this is the like perfect mix of Alice in Wonderland and Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
So if you'll permit me to twist your question a little bit, if I had to compare it to another story that exists, it's Alice in Wonderland, Game of Thrones.
Wonderland Thrones.
Wonderland Thrones. There we go.
There we go. Nice. I mean, yeah, I actually I picked up the McKelvey variant for this because I really wanted to just understand what Amy was talking about. Yeah, it's a great book. It's nonsense. It's fantastic.
You definitely have to understand that it is nonsense. There is plot. The plot is minimal. The nonsense is excessive. And that's what you're purchasing when you get this book.
Yes. Excess.
Yeah. It feels like Kieran Gillen is finally, he's like, this story that has been announced for so long is finally breaking free. Here it is.
Yes. Good old Gillen. Never lets us down.
Nope.
But everyone, before we move on to the Comics Hall pick of the week, Adventure Man #1 by Image Comics, we asked you guys a little bit earlier, what is everyone reading? What are you all? Are there any new series at all that y'all have been reading? We would love to cast, if you don't mind, if we have some of those. Let us know what maybe some folks are reading. Let us know. I think I just said reading like 14 times.
Yeah, we actually have a few of those. We got from YouTube, Zach said that he has been reading some Brother Blood. Devin Bell said that he's looking forward for the Black Cat Strikes, the new Spider-Man issue.
Oh, yeah.
On Facebook, Tim Cook said that he is loving the Strange Adventures with Adam Strange.
Oh,
and
yes.
the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group, Paul Lynch said that he is reading Lady Death.
Oh, awesome. Yes.
I haven't had a chance to look at that one yet.
Yes, for whoever, mentioned Strange Adventures, you win a Comics Hall hug from me. Because
a socially distanced hug.
A socially distant hug because, like, one, I could, Doc Shaner to me can do no wrong. I love everything that he does. So that book, and and Tom King especially, bringing another character like that to life. So good.
And that's another one of the Maxi series, right?
Yeah, it's a 12 issue maxi with Mitch Gerards, Doc Shaner, and Tom King on that book. It's fantastic. All of the covers are beautiful. And you get like a real gritty, weird story where you pull in all of these other heroes that you never would imagine interacting with Adam Strange. So
DC has kind of mastered the Maxi series, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's something that Marvel doesn't offer, surprisingly. But with Far Sector, Lois Lane, Miracle Man, or not Miracle Man, Mr. Oh my goodness. What is Scott Free's superhero name?
Mr. Terrific.
No.
Wait.
No, he's not Mr. Terrific. That's a totally different character.
See, Mr. Terrific is in Mr. Terrific is in Adam Strange. Oh, you're thinking of Mr. Miracle.
Mr. Miracle. Okay, not Miracle Man. I'm sorry. You guys just witnessed brain buffering happening in real time. But yeah, DC has mastered the Maxi series, which I think those are so fantastic. And I'm actually sad Lois Lane is about to end, and that one's been so enjoyable. So good. Cassidy, you just shared another comment from the Let Your Geek Sideshow group.
Yes. So Adriana Gonzalez said that Amy just sold her on a comic book that she wasn't interested in at all. So that's pretty good. You have also gotten some love from Instagram on your description of Ludocrats. True Folks 1 says that's their kind of comic. And Excellent. Visual Person 0391 said that it sounds charming and whimsical.
Yes, I would agree. That whimsical is another good word for it.
I don't know if I'd call it charming, but
I think so. In a backwards way, it's very charming. Like
I guess, yeah.
You want the best for these terrible characters. I firmly believe in championing books that got announced a long time ago but are finally making their way to print, because we have a tendency to forget about those books. The hype is really big when it starts and then it fades. But that's a good segue, I think, into our Adventure Man segment, because it was announced a few years ago and it took some time to get to print. And I think actually they said this book was over a decade in the making, and I don't know the exact timeline. But Adventure Man. So this is our pick of the week. It didn't come out this week, and I do believe it is getting a second printing. So if you haven't had a chance to pick up the first printing, highly recommend you do so. This is from All-Star Team Matt Fraction, Terry and Rachel Dodson doing inks and colors, and Clayton Cowles on the letters.
Oh man, and yeah, this is a pretty incredible book here. Before we get into the plot, I definitely knew about it, but it's because like I look at previews and stuff, of course, all the time, as we both do, me and Amy. But this book has kind of, in a way, gone under the radar. Like I think Image is kind of building up right now, like Negan Lives, and there's Firepower. There's all these big books that are coming out that are indies, and this book is incredible, and it just kind of slid under the radar there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it was first revealed. A long time ago, like there was a lot of fanfare and everybody was like, man, it's Fraction and the Dodsons. Like that is comic book royalty. But yeah, the release around Adventure Man was surprisingly quiet. And I think this is a book that would benefit from like a old timey radio serial style trailer, So first of all, before we get into the story of this book, one of the reasons why it's our pick of the week is because of how economic of a purchase it is. It is $3.99 for issue number 1. You get 64 pages of comic book, and total it's 56 pages of story with 8 pages of bonus material, like that math I just did on the fly. I don't think I did the math correctly. Yeah, I did. No, I did. I shouldn't doubt myself.
We're not math scientists, Amy. You're fine.
No, but Terry Dodson has informed us that every issue is going to be oversized in some way, not all to the same degree, but issue 2 is going to be 40 pages total with 32 pages of story. Issue number 3 is 32 pages with 24 pages of story plus bonus material, which is the standard size of a comic is 24, but you get bonus material. And then issue number 4 is 40 pages total with 30 pages of story plus bonus material. Now, I don't know if that confirms that this is only a 4-issue series. It may be. It seems like this is probably set to be a limited series. But for that first issue, you're getting 3 comic books worth of story for $3.99, where not to diss them, I love Marvel and DC, but Marvel and DC would charge you about $10 for this issue, like for a length of the book like that.
Yeah, Death Metal's 32 pages and is $4.99. So, I mean, just calling it like we see it. But
so that's part of our aim is accessibility, interest, and the monetary investment is extremely economical for your comic book wallets.
And so I think, before, because we could literally probably talk about this book itself, the whole show. Amy, I think, would you please more eloquently tell people what this story is about? Because I feel like I'd just be like, oh, it's this cool thing that, it's superheroes. So please.
I will do my best. And I think it's good to start with the original tagline for the teaser. The teaser image that debuted was, "The legends are true. The stories are real. His legacy is hers." So this is a story within a story. Actually, it's very interesting. Fraction begins with a frame of the fact that we are introduced immediately to Adventure Inc., which is headed by Adventure Man, and it's a 1940s-esque diesel punk team of adventurer superheroes. They're not the conventional cape type superheroes, but it is the Pulp Fiction radio serial type characters that you would see. And you meet Adventure Man and his cadre of heroes. There's Phaedra Phantom, the ghostly saint of the burlesque, and Lonnie Langolis, the brawler of the Bowery, and they all have fun, charming little names like that. And they're at war against Baroness Bizarre, who is the daughter of Satan herself. Or Satan himself. There we go. There's the Adventure Man team. Yes, and so you can see, and the Dodsons, picture perfect. And Clayton Cowles' lettering is really fun actually to notice here. Each of the characters has their own font that introduces them. So there's Jim Royale, the gentleman, and Akal, the timeless one. And Phaedra Phantom's own speech bubbles are actually translucent on the page, giving her that idea that she's she's able to phase through things. So you get a charming classic team, and they are up against Baroness Bizarre and even more devilish bad guys like Maggie of the Hellcats and stuff. And so I learned that this specific style is called diesel punk. It's not steampunk, because steampunk is the Victorian sensibility, but this is specifically post-war with that aided technology. And so you go on an adventure with Adventure Inc. as they fight. And then there's this amazing page that actually caught me off guard. I knew what the plot of the story was, but I didn't realize how they were going to pull it off. The word bubbles of the characters slowly fade off into a reveal of straight text on a page like a book. And I believe we have that image in here somewhere where Adventure Man is down on the ground.
There we go.
Yeah, the Baroness has subdued most of his team, and the secondary villain, the Baron Bizarre, has him down on the ground. And then it switches to text like you were reading a book. And then it leaves you on a cliffhanger there as it switches back to the real world, where you meet Claire and her son, who is an adventure fan, and they are actually reading the latest issue or the latest book of Adventure Man. Now Claire runs a bookstore in a large city, and so this is kind of their family ritual of reading the book, and they discover. Paul, do you want to jump in and kind of explain this part?
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is Claire, who is our main protagonist there. She, as Matt Fraction is one to do, she's deaf. And, Matt Fraction is not his first time working with a deaf character, being his incredible work in Hawkeye. This is her. It's pretty great. She takes out her hearing aids to kind of just shut everything out. And this is like her alone time. And, between the lettering and the art of the Dotsons, like the way that they showcase the very, very busy world and what it looks like to her is so impressive. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about this book is like the underlying tone in for the first half, which is like I call it the adventure half, and then you have the more real world half there. He said
Cassidy, you wanna relay that joke to us?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Jordan Barrett from Facebook asked, so the story is fractioned off into multiple stories?
It is exactly fractioned off.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Sorry. I mean, I hope that was a pun intended, but yes, the story is fractioned off.
Yes, it sure is.
And it will only continue to be more so as the series progresses.
But one of the things that I love about this book that I think is at the heart and center of this book is family, and that being the family that we see Claire and her son have. Claire is one of 6, and every there's a wonderful scene that we didn't ask and we didn't upload here, but it's a wonderful scene of her and her 6 siblings and her dad having this big weekly end of the week Shabbat dinner, and it's so. I come from a big family, and so if anyone out there also comes from a big family, that like you sit at the table and everyone's older than you or louder than you. It's just you literally start to feel like you're not heard or like you're not there. And so her also being deaf, kind of playing into that, and then they also play into that in that scene. But it's super interesting, and I love that in an article with Forbes, Matt Fraction actually talked about the inspiration for that, like where that came from, and it's that him and his wife Kelly Sue DeConnick, they of
Captain Marvel fame,
of comic book royalty fame, that they actually go to dinner with Brian Michael Bendis and his family and a bunch of other people who are also in Portland. And so that's kind of, they decompress and just kind of catch up. And that's where that scene was inspired from. And the Dotsons, took some inspiration from that as well, from the Royal Tenenbaums, the film, and to kind of just make every character feel unique and heard. And it's really interesting when you start seeing the characters explained and their powers, and that kind of that splash page we showed earlier. And then you meet Claire's family and you start to realize, I think some of these could be modern avatars for these characters that we met. And that's really where, I think the story is going. That's just a fan theory.
Yes. And so, and not to get too heavily in depth, but the intrigue comes when they believe that is like the final, the book we were reading is the final Adventure Man story. Like, not, there were more volumes, but they didn't get published, or they've been lost in the annals of time. And a mysterious woman comes into her bookstore, who appears to be like one of the characters from the book. She's very reminiscent of Phaedra Phantom. And Claire is given, I always want to call her Molly, but the bookstore is Molly's bookstore because of her mother. But she finds another copy that is like a first edition Adventure Man story that she's never read, and more intrigue starts to come out as strange things happen in her store, and she realizes that, like, this is an Adventure Man story that no one's ever seen before. And they leave you on a pretty good cliffhanger. But based on the trailer or the teaser tagline of "the stories are real and his legacy is hers," we're obviously going to see the world of Adventure Man crash even more into Claire's life. And I wish we had pulled a panel of it, but going back to the dinner scene, we always like to kind of point out more ways in which you can be aware of how every artist and creator affects the comic book. And you want to pay a special attention to Clayton Cowles' lettering, because, as we mentioned with the bit of Phaedra Phantom, and her word bubbles are kind of faded out. In the dinner scene, when Claire dims the sound on her hearing aids, I don't think she I think she removes them fully. But all of the word bubbles of every other character become, the text is blurred. You can't read it. It's faded out. There's only a couple of grayed out words that you can actually read legibly, but they're still so soft, like as if they're distant, because the character is yelling, and they're yelling because they realize she's taken out her hearing aids, and she's not paying attention to the family dinner. And they do a great job of having the bubbles physically close to her face, and it just feels like claustrophobia, which is what leads her to take the hearing aids out. So that's a really cool visual way in which they add character to her and to the scene. And then I really like the distinction. Someone in the reviewer community mentioned that the sound effects, so when it's like honk, beep, like the big ones, that the Dodsons add those in. I am not 100% sure. There's not a breakdown. But yeah, you can kind of see in the corner here the honks and beeps. But when she removes her hearing aids, those become, they lose their black outline, and all the letter shapes become undefined. And so you can still see the fact that there is sound, but the letters have become basically invisible. You don't know what letters are making up those sounds. And then I think the last thing I want to mention is, I know Rachel Dodson helps with the inks for Terry, and Terry does the penciling, but her choice of colors is exceptional, and she's one of my favorite colorists. And as a team, Terry and Rachel are unstoppable. They've done some fine art prints with the Sideshow art print program, but it's really cool because the first half of the book, when you're in the diesel punk universe, it is mostly greens, reds, browns, yellows, bronze, to get that diesel punk, that timelessness to the scenes. And then when you switch to the modern, it's very distinct. The classic story doesn't have any blues in it. Doesn't really have any blues. I mean, you get it through the greens, but Claire's world has blues. It has purples. It has a lot more variability in the colors that give the pulp vibe versus the modern world where things are actually happening in the present. And I look forward to, I don't know, because the second issue hasn't come out yet, but I look forward to seeing if, as more of the Adventure Man story spills out into the real world, if the colors in the real world will change to reflect that or not. Because that's obviously a story device that a lot of colorists use, and I think we'll have a cool way of seeing once the realms start to bleed together, how the visuals might change there.
Right, and I loved so much in one of the interviews with the Dodsons and Matt Fraction, they were talking about this book, and they said, the first issue, it's oversized, as Amy had mentioned. It's a huge book. I put in my notes, you're actually losing money by not buying this book. So go to your local comic book shop and go buy this book.
That's how comic books work. But seriously, there are, I could probably count on one hand, and I can't even think of any immediately that offer you this much content for the standard price of a $3.99 book. It's not. They could easily get away with making it a $5.99 book. I mean, Marvel does that for some of their events, the $4.99s, $5.99s. You could easily pay $6 for this, but this is a really, it's a really good bang for your buck, and all of the rest of the series is. And I really like that Terry actually pretty transparently outlined how much story and how much bonus material you're getting for each issue at the same exact price each time.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that she did do that. I'm sorry, you said Terry Dotson did that, or was it
I think
Dotson?
Terry did it.
Terry did it, so he did it. So it was really cool that Terry Dotson had done that, because I know that me and Amy have both worked in comic book stores. Again, if you've never watched the Comics Hall, welcome. But we've both worked in comic book stores, and we're obsessed with comic books. And this is basically a conversation that would happen at our desks, but we're bringing it to everyone here. But one thing that always comes up is, and if you've gone into shops or at all, you're like, I don't want to pay $2.99 for this book, or
I remember when books were $2.99
or $5.99, or I just bought and they've all kind of come out on the DC side, the Green Lantern 80th special. It's like, that's $9.99. That's a lot of money for a book. It's 100 pages, but 100 pages, $9.99. This is 64 pages at $3.99.
And we may not be math scientists, but them some good numbers.
But I know it's less money. So I don't know. But this book in particular, Amy had mentioned a key word there in talking about the colors that not Tamara Bonvillain, that we're so used to talking about her. But some of the colors that Rachel Dotson did use is bronze. And to me, that is like one of the words that encapsulates what this book is about, because this is really a gentle nudge at the pulp heroes of yesterday, if you will. Some of the more prominent ones, think Duck Savage, think the Spider. I also thought, weird thought just came into my brain. The guy, the pulp hero in Up. Remember him? If you guys watched Up, you'll know what I'm talking about. But he's one of the pulp heroes who's in the black and white, and he's on the he's the guy that gives them the "Adventure is here" tagline. Anyways.
Oh yeah.
But that's the kind of style that they really wanted this world to live in. But they took out some of the antiquated details that maybe lived in some of those books and really made it a modern version of it. And honestly, even if you get this book just to check it out, it's so incredible to think of the team that is on this book alone is worth, again, the cost of it, the price of admission. I like to say it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it really, I think the idea that it feels like you're listening to it, because most people like to listen to podcasts nowadays. This could very easily be someone listening to a radio serial, and then it switches to the modern world, but everything is real, and we're about to see how that's going to affect Claire. And I'm sure her son will get a kick out of it too, because he's a big fan of the Adventure Man books, but the story really is focused on her, who is trying to find her place in the world she lives in her family. What does she want? What does she get out of maintaining the bookstore that is, I believe it's a family bookstore, or it was at least, but she's kind of the one who runs it. And it's just it's a romp. It is delightful. It's essential Matt Fraction voice with the quirky characters. The art is unparalleled. And this is one of the biggest releases that I think, Paul, you're absolutely right. It did not get the fanfare it should have, whether due to the publishing rearrangements of books right now or other titles that Image just wanted to push more strongly. But Adventure Man is easily one of my favorite books that I've read in the last year.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's so much world. If you've read Matt Fraction at all, whether you maybe read his Uncanny X-Men run, his Hawkeye run, there are so many fleshed out characters in a way that Matt Fraction just knows how to do. And when you team up with the likes of Clayton Cowles and the Dodsons, like, I mean, this book is gonna be a hit, whether it goes on for 11 more issues or 1100 more issues. I think we're both kind of in for the ride there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I think, should we check back in with, how's Cassidy? How you doing, Cassidy?
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we got we got a lot of love in the comics for you guys, or the comments for you guys.
Love in the comics too.
I know, right? Lord Thoth from YouTube said that he really likes this show. He's also been a certified comic accessor since 1971. So just really enjoying the show.
That's a lot of comics, man.
That is, wow. That is a
respect.
The 70s, man. A lot of important stuff came out in the 70s for comics.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
yeah,
I know, right?
Well, thank you so much
for watching our show.
And then we also had a fun little matchup in Facebook and the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. Tim Cook on Facebook said that he was reading Mr. Terrific, and Adriana Gonzalez in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group said that she was reading Mr. Miracle.
Oh, well.
Excellent. So it all comes full circle.
Full circle, yes. Mr. Miracle, that was released, what, 2015, 16? There was, not to be, technically we're right. You can just throw a title out there and assume that it's been written. There was a Mr. Terrific title that I think got about 9-10 issues during the end of the New 52 run before it got into Rebirth. I think Ray Fox actually. So you were right on both counts there, Amy. But yeah, there is a Mr. Terrific story out there. But I think we're constantly in the comic book verse and reading stuff. I think there's a lot of chatter about people really wanting to see this team doing Strange Adventures really tackle a Mr. Terrific story, because his particular story in Strange Adventures is incredibly distracting in the best way. That it's so good to see what his daily life looks like that you're like, we need at least a 12-issue series. And I think like to have Tom King and the same team tackle it would be incredible.
Yeah, that's a good team. And again, DC's got that maxi series formula down. Now, we did also ask our Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. So these comments were from earlier in the week, but I just wanted to shout them out because we did ask you guys what new series you've been reading or that we should look out for. Rich Veers said 0 Year. Richard Anderson and a couple other people, George Nieves, all a lot of love for Adventure Man. But we got some call outs from Mercy, which I am reading and I do quite enjoy. I have to catch up on the latest issue that came out this week, but I am 100% in on the Victorian Gothic body horror, plant monster, alien, whatever is going on. Like I'm all into it. And I love Mirka Andolfo, and I've enjoyed her work since DC Bombshells. Matthew Weekly said, did somebody say death metal? And yes, we did. Paul said death metal a lot of times. And then Jasmine Edwards was checking out Ludocrats, Primer, and A Man Among Ye.
Great.
Primer did come out just a week or two ago. The Postal Service is playing keep away with mine. They keep changing the day it's supposed to arrive. So as soon as I get my copy of Primer, we're going to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
And then I know A Man Among Ye was a Image comic book about real life lady pirates. So I will probably have to check that one out too. But I'm catching up on my stuff, and I'm really holding out for Primer right now. But it's exciting that actually this is the first episode in a while we've gotten to talk about books that have come out on the shelves recently, and it's exciting and really encouraging to see that comics again, like even though there were some setbacks with the publishing schedules and releases, books are available, books are coming out. If you can get yours safely at your local store, we encourage you to do that. Otherwise, they are available on online, and you can continue to read the new stories that are coming out. And there's some amazing stuff that I really hope that people don't miss out on because of the way that everything changed up.
Yes. So when there are new books, where there are new books, there will be the Comics Hall. So we will be there, when all these books roll out. And speaking of rollout, we got to get going, guys.
Are we Autobots now? Is that what's going on?
We are. Yeah. I'm a bot. Basically.
You're like a troll bot in our chat? No, I'm kidding.
Either one.
Either one. No, this was a really fun show. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that at least you found one new series that you might have missed otherwise. But again, always shout out at us what you are reading, because we also can't keep on top of everything. For as much as we have eyes everywhere, there are things that we are bound to miss. So please let us know what you're reading, what you're enjoying. Shout out to us on social. Thank you, Cassidy, for wrangling the chats and moderating for us.
Of course.
And I'm Amy.
I'm Paul.
And this has been the Comics Hall.
Boom, boom, boom. Death metal.